Hi guys, how's it going today? So today I want to talk to you about Brexit and what Brexit sort of means for travellers. Now, I'm probably the worst person to talk about this because I'm not very political and I don't know a lot about the politics, but I'm just going to give you my own take on what I think Brexit means and reasons I think it might affect me as a traveller. Now, being a traveller and travelling around the world, I've had to get visas in the majority of countries that I've travelled to. So I guess in a couple of years' time, when the UK actually comes out of Europe, actually makes the step out of Europe, because it is going to take a couple of years for that to happen, then we most probably will have to have visas to visit countries in Europe and possibly visas to work in them countries. I'm not too sure, like maybe some countries will have an agreement with the UK that we can work there and they can work in the UK. At the start of the whole Brexit campaign, I was kind of like, oh, I really want to stay in Europe, and that was sort of for my own personal reasons for the whole being able to travel and work in Europe. Like it was, I don't know if it was a selfish reason for me. So I've never actually voted, I've never voted for a Prime Minister, and I didn't vote for the Brexit debate. Now, it's not because I don't want to vote or can't be asked to vote or I'm not interested, it's just I've just never signed up to be able to vote. I guess I will one day, but it doesn't really bother me at the minute that I'm not voting or I am voting. I just go with the flow. I'm quite a relaxed, chilled out person. I just kind of think things will just happen, so let's just go with the flow. If England comes out of Europe, then they come out of Europe. If they don't, then they don't. It's not a massive issue for me personally. I mean, it is for a lot of people around the world, but for me personally, it's not really that big of a deal. So the reason I wanted Britain to stay in Europe was, like I said, for my own personal reason, for me to be able to travel and work around Europe. I was sitting down on Thursday morning and turned on the TV, and because of the time difference, we woke up about 7 AM English time, and the whole debate was going on TV. They were sort of saying, oh, Brexit is now on, like they've decided, a couple more votes are coming in from areas, and then it was decided that we had voted for Brexit by a 1 million majority, which is cool. Like, I wasn't gutted, I wasn't disappointed, I was just like, right, let's get on to this, let's find out what this means for my home country, for Britain. Okay, I'm interested now, let's have a look. So I watched a documentary, and I watched 3 documentaries, but one specifically I watched, I'll link it in the description below. And it kind of like made my head nearly explode with the amount of data and the amount of stuff that they were saying. I had no idea. I'd never really researched it before. I've seen a few posts on Facebook and stuff about it, and a few like MPs like doing their own little talk on Facebook and stuff, trying to get people interested, but I don't know, it just never really interested me that much. So this documentary was very, very interesting, and there was a part of the documentary which I found extremely interesting, which was when the guy was going around and he was walking around Brussels and he was showing people like pieces of paper with people's faces on, and basically a mugshot, and he was like, do you know this person? And people were like, no, I don't know who he is. And it was like, oh, do you know who this person is? And they were like, no, don't know. So he asked quite a few people. And basically there's 4 prime ministers, sort of 4 people in charge of the European government. And I had no idea who they were. And he was saying, well, if you want to be part of a democracy, then you need to know who's in charge of your democracy to be able to sort of disagree with them or agree with them, or actually you have to know, surely you have to know. Like, I know who David Cameron is, I know who my Prime Minister is, and if I did want to vote, I know who he was up against to become Prime Minister. Now, I mean, I didn't vote on that situation for him to become our Prime Minister, but I just kind of think they're all kind of the same. I mean, they say policies at the end of the day, and some get done, some don't. I mean, the whole thing back a few years ago when they came in and said, oh, we're definitely not going to raise the price of education for universities. And then I think it was about 6 months later they did, and all the students started rioting. It was just pretty crazy. I mean, things have got to be done. I mean, you can disagree with them or agree with them, but at the end of the day, no one's ever happy, are they really? It's just, that's the way it is. So, yeah, I mean, this whole democracy thing, is it a good thing now we're in Brexit? I still don't 100% know. I kind of have a feeling that it might be a good thing. But, I don't know, leave your comments down below. Let me know where you're from in the world in the comments down below, and let me know like your thoughts, and especially if there's people from the UK, let me know down below and let me know your thoughts on it. I mean, as a traveller, sort of travelling the world for just over 3 years now, I mean, I love the UK to bits, and it's my home country. I'll always be proud of where I'm from. But I kind of feel a distance now with the UK. I kind of feel like I could quite happily live in a different country. And I do love the weather in different countries. Our weather is a little bit shitty, but I mean, that's my personal reasons why I will probably live the majority of my life abroad. But saying that, I'm always very, very humble, and I know I'm very, very lucky to have been brought up in the UK, and I can always go back. So I love the UK to bits. And I want to see the UK do well. And I want to see Europe do well. I don't want to see, like, we have the backlash at the minute with the pound prices going down. But it's not just affecting the pound, it's affecting Spain, it's affecting France, Germany. Like, all their stock markets have dropped. And that's not a good thing. But how long will it last? I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows. I mean, it's going to take at least 2 years. I read an article which it said it could even take 5 years for the whole Brexit thing to come into force and us to actually leave Europe. There was one sort of major thing in this documentary where it was saying was, because of the EU that sort of built a sort of barrier around the EU, it's creating taxes and stuff and creating implications for companies outside the EU to bring their products into the EU and sell them. And they're sort of helping out shitter companies, I'll put it bluntly, in the EU that are EU based, creating products. And they did like a little skit with these umbrellas, and there was like an EU company making umbrellas, and there was like a Chinese company making umbrellas, and the Chinese umbrella sort of, you press the button and the umbrella went up, and you press the button and the umbrella went down, and the EU one was just a normal umbrella. But because of the restrictions and the implications they put onto the Chinese product, the Chinese sort of couldn't introduce this umbrella into Europe because it would have been like ridiculous amount of money for them to be able to sell it for a profit. But then saying that, it's good that they're doing that for the EU companies. But then it was saying it's making the EU companies a bit lazy, you know? If competition goes down, then sort of productivity and new ideas and people that would come in with new ideas is sort of squashed a little bit because they don't have as big a competition anymore. So what's the need to create new fancy umbrellas? There isn't any need. People are still buying the old shitty ones. If you sort of squash the market, then the expansion of the market doesn't really happen. Anyway, please, please, please watch the documentary below. I'm still in the middle. I don't know whether this is a good thing for the UK or a bad thing for the UK. I'm just gonna go with it and see what happens, and hopefully it will be a good thing, because I can't change the fact that we're out now. Like I said, for travellers around the world, and especially people living in Europe, you don't really have to worry for roughly 2 years. It's not an exact date, it's going to be 2 years and then we're out. We don't really know at this point in time, but it is scary, especially for, I would say it's especially scary for people that have been living outside of the UK in Europe on a permanent basis now. Like, you might have bought a house there, maybe in 2 years you'll have to sell your house and move back to the UK. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be certain rules or something put into place for people like that. I can't imagine that people that have been living in Europe outside of the UK are going to be forced back to the UK when this all happens. Hopefully that does not happen. That would be crazy if it does. But please, 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 let me know in the comments below. and let me know what your views are. Let me know what your views are on this topic, and hopefully it will all work out. I don't know.